Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video called Why is European Rail So Good? Which, obviously it has to do with trains, this video, and I'm excited because I do know that, everyone in Europe just gets around by train, which I think is like a great method of transportation, and probably more countries should adapt that and should follow the rail system because it's a very efficient method of transport. But I'm excited, so let's check it out and comment, like, and subscribe.
Americans often look at the European passenger rail system with envy, as in comparison with Amtrak, it often seems in a class of its own.
The Amtrak
But
gets
how did it get so good? With a variety of different systems in different EU member states, spanning from national carriers to private low-cost carriers and luxury carriers, there are hundreds of different possibilities for what train to take. Their system of keeping everything connected and in sync is a fantastic achievement, and it exemplifies perfectly how Europe mastered the balance between the private railroads and the public railroads that the US has had such a hard time dealing with.
Well, what's the difference between
Original railroad development in Europe was very scattered, as railways were developed without a common standard, often only to achieve one specific purpose in a country. However, in 1842, the first international railroad opened between Belgium and France. And that set the stage for what is now one of the most diverse systems in the world.
Surprised it was like that old.
At this time, trains were all running on different gauge tracks. Many were not connected, and the companies who owned each train and track were often unwilling to work with one another.
Oh, because
one of the most famous examples of this is the past of the London Underground, where several companies simultaneously developed their own transit networks, often clashing with one another over territory, routes, and stations. This may be a full video in the future, so please subscribe if you're interested in hearing more about that, and let me know what you think about it down.
I have to say I'm laughing because I'm like I don't know how it looked like and what year was this sort of like situation, but I'm just imagining just like you're going from like one place to Camden to I don't know Hampstead or something, and you're just like there's two trains that go like to the same place because they belong each one to a different company, so they're just like running at the same time, and I don't know, it's a race for like who goes. I got there first. I don't know. This seems like an insane situation.
Down in the comments. There is still a problem today, and it has been an even greater problem when it comes to electrification. Different voltages and styles have been built with little rhyme or reason across the continent, some using direct current and some using alternating current.
What's the difference?
But Europe is solving this with their new high-speed rail integrated system. High-speed rail has solved a lot of these problems for Europe, as they have begun to regulate to make sure that they can, in fact, complete their high-speed rail goals.
Of course.
They require a standard level of electrification and a standard track gauge by order of the EU, and this has solved a ton of issues. Whenever countries are laying new tracks, they have to follow this standard, excluding Russia, who still use broad gauge tracks because they're not in the EU proper, and they tend to ignore most of their legislation. All new railroads in Europe are also required to use the European Train Control System, which is a signaling and control system to guarantee a common level of safety, information, and operation. This has been able to promote better cross-border traffic as well. This has increased economic development, tourism, and tons of other things, so EU legislators can point to that and prove that their system is increasing the quality of life and economics of every European country.
Yes.
Europe has also allowed for free competition on nationally owned tracks and privately owned tracks. They passed the Single European Railway Directive in 2012, which guaranteed every private rail company the ability to apply for and receive access to operate on EU country tracks. This competition has made it so that national carriers cannot rest on their laurels as a monopoly, as independent carriers could swoop in and cut them out at any time. The same goes for private carriers, as someone else can come along and gain permission to operate on their tracks. Obviously, they do have to pay to operate on those tracks, but it has to be a fair price. They can't just make it impossible.
Oh, okay. I think I kind of understand it a little bit. Is the train tracks are always going to be the same? What changes is the actual train that goes in the tracks, and that's what maybe a different company is used in the track, and you're sort of like renting it. I don't know what's the proper term, but I think it's like you're renting it, which I think sounds very, very good. Like I like the logic behind this, but I hadn't really thought of it. So this is very interesting.
Possible to have people compete with them. The EU also has a set of standards for future electrification and track construction, which should guarantee interoperability between different carriers. Although there are ways around this, and it has proved a difficult and complex issue, especially as certain governments take issue with EU legislation and say that the European government is overreaching its power. However, most major European countries are following these legislations, and it has proved to be very successful overall. This promotion of free industry has sped up the rapid growth of high-speed rail in the continent. Wendover Productions has a fantastic video on this that I highly recommend you check out. I'll leave it linked in the source document in the description of my video, but I'll give you a few examples of this as well. One is in Spain, which currently has 3 competing high-speed rail carriers, all of which competing at very low costs in comparison to planes. Iryo is one of those, a low-cost rail operator. It doesn't have a ton of lines yet, but it connects several of the major cities in Spain together with cheap tickets starting at 18 euros. The competition between these railroads has forced them to innovate, leading to a high standard of customer satisfaction in the Spanish railroad system, and high qualities of service, speed, price, cleanliness, food, and more. Government incentives have also proven a very effective tactic at generating an increased standard of high-speed rail in Europe, with hundreds of billions being handed out to improve service, extend rail lines, purchase trains, and serve other places that do not currently have frequent service.
That's very important.
So while there is still lots of work to be done, it covers a very impressive amount of territory, and their legislation is able to accomplish a ton, making it one of the best systems to ride on in the world. In comparison to the Chinese or Japanese services, it's not very good. But in comparison to Amtrak, it is incredible. That's not to say that European rail operators don't make mistakes. In fact, one very large mistake was when the Spanish rail carrier made a bit of a purchasing error and purchased trains that did not fit in their own tunnels. If you're interested in that video, click on screen right now. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.
I think the funniest part of this was the Amtrak like catching strays, but I think this is very good. I don't know why I thought in my head I thought that most of the trains were like with the government, all of them were like government owned. I wasn't thinking they're private, or maybe actually I kind of did. I did knew that, but I hadn't rationalized it in my head. Like, yes, of course it's private companies. It's not actually the government that actually owns this, but because it's such a situation, like train tracks belong, I don't know, with the maintenance, does it belong, is the government taking care of this, or is the private companies have to take care of the maintenance? I think it's a joint effort, right? I would think the train tracks are the government, and then the private companies, again, I explained it earlier, of the trains are renting the tracks, and obviously you can have competing companies. And obviously they want to improve, because if I have options, and if I have 3 other options, and maybe your service is not the best, or maybe you're more expensive and you're offering me bad service, of course I'm going to go to the other one that maybe offers, maybe it's more expensive, or maybe it's cheaper, I don't know, because customer experience is very important. So I'm just going to go whatever. If I'm not feeling happy with what you're offering, whether that's just the money or the treatment or whatever, I'm going to go with the other one, because again, there's choices. So, the market, the competition is healthy, and I like that they don't really have a monopoly. I don't know, it's kind of crazy to me, because I keep thinking, I knew that there are different companies, there are different train companies, but it's maybe because my brain hadn't gone that far to actually be who actually owns this? Is it the government? Because I'm thinking all the regulations and all of if they want to expand a certain track, they obviously it's the government because you have to ask permission because again you can just like say, hey, I'm gonna build something that goes to this city. It's a joint effort probably, or maybe like do private companies can actually like go if I have like this great idea that's I think is going to be like very helpful and it's going to give me a lot of money. Like, yes, I want to build like I want to connect like this two cities and I have the money to actually like build the train tracks. Does a private company can a private company do that? Like, can they just like say, yes, we have the plan and you obviously you present your project and you're like, yes, I can. We want to build the train tracks here and we want to connect these two cities. And have the money and all, like, do they do that? Or do they still need, and the government just says, okay, then you guys do it? Or do they still need to be sort of like regulated? Does the government always has to help? Do they actually like, the costs maybe are a little bit, to lower the cost? Maybe the government like subsidizes a little bit of that those repairs or those, that widening of or that connection. I want to know the logistics behind it all because I have no idea how it works actually. And maybe I'm thinking maybe it just depends on the country. Like maybe some countries, because again, they really do like make an emphasis on how different like the different regulations are depending on each country. It's not just because it's a European Union, you would think everything's regulated, but it's like not really. So maybe just it changes depending on the country. So maybe some countries do offer like some grants or something. They are more collaborative. They are willing to like make more collaborations up to have and they want to improve their train system. So they maybe are a little bit more open to it, and maybe others I can imagine maybe they're very like, no, we're gonna handle it ourselves, and we can't have like a private company wanting to like add new lines. I don't really know, but again, would love to know the logistics because it's something that I hadn't really thought of, but it sounds very interesting when you start to actually get to the nitty-gritty of it all. It's like, oh wow, actually I want to know more about this because I have a lot of questions about this. I think the craziest thing to me is the fact that they were allowed to actually like build, that they have like so many different, again, I don't really know how the rail system works. I know it's an electric thing that you need electricity, but beyond that I'm a little bit unclear. I know that it's different voltage because apparently everyone uses something different, but it's crazy to me to think of like how come each country uses something different, because I'm thinking not just because I'm getting this sort of like this rail system was probably, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm thinking it was built before the European Union was a thing. So maybe it's because they didn't really have the regulations in place because there was no European Union and just everyone just did whatever they wanted to. So it was all depending on whether that's probably like more, because again, different countries have like different, I would guess like different types of like, I don't know, maybe it's cheaper to produce like this type of voltage, or maybe because of, I don't know, the landscape situation where we live, like this is the voltage that is the right voltage for us. But then that's why it's so like, one uses this, the other uses that one, and it's like whatever people were not seeing, in the future it would be a good idea to actually like connect everything and connect all the countries. Of course, they probably weren't thinking of that because they weren't thinking, extremely long term. But it is, again, it's mind blowing to me that don't they all use the same voltage? Again, I have no idea about electricity voltage or trains, so maybe it's a very stupid question on my part. But it's like, yeah, I don't know. I want to know why they use different voltages. I know. My only experience is that I know that like washing machines and like dryers use different voltage than other sort of like electrical outlets in your house. That's as far as I can go with like voltages and different things. So I and that's the only thing I know about this. So I know that apparently everyone uses different things, but again, I don't know why they do that. I don't know why can't they all just be the same? It's the same kind of electricity. I don't know. I can talk about this for hours because I don't really know like what's a voltage actually. Like I know I can just go around with this for ages. So I'm gonna leave it there. But it is kind of like interesting to me that if they want to reverse that, and obviously that's what they should obviously look forward in the future of like, yes, we obviously wanna have like this rails that actually like connect, ideally that obviously connects almost every major city in Europe, and if not major city, even like, let's think bigger, like not just bigger cities but actually like smaller cities, whatever. Like the thing is that you are supposed to be able to travel by train throughout all Europe in an efficient, cost-effective way. I think that's obviously what they should aim for, and I think that's probably their plan. But of course, it's going to cost a lot of money, and it's going to take us a lot of years. So I'm wondering how they're actually going to do that. How does it look like logistically? Again, if they're like, we're expanding the train tracks, and again, if you're wanna connect with Romania, maybe Romania uses again another voltage. How do they do that? How do they like change that? Do they have to like tear down those rails and put another ones in place, or it's just a thing about like making the connection, as in like, I don't know, something that it goes on top of the, I don't know, those poles, or those electrical poles. I don't know. I actually want to know. I'm interested in the logistics behind it all, because it looks like a very, it's like a huge project actually, when you're looking at it like that. And I do have to say I think it was 1842, if I'm remembering correctly, and which was like the first sort of like, I think it was in Europe, I think, maybe it wasn't like worldwide, but it's crazy that yes, in 1842 was like the first time that a train went, from one country to another. Yes, it was like France and Belgium, which are, next door, but I think it was like, wow, that's actually quite older. I was thinking maybe it's a newer situation, although I know that rails like have existed for like a really long time. But the fact that it actually connects like two different countries, like that's wild to me. And it's like, wow, the 1840s, like that's almost like 200 years ago. That's like crazy to me. Like it's I would think like it's a newer invention, or a new, probably more recent, like in the last, in the 20th century. But it's good to know that, no, we've been doing this for quite a bit. So, I'm wondering how long that it took. It would be something that probably what people will laugh about now, of like, oh, it took them like 6 hours just to get from this city to another. And in this day and age, it would probably it would take you like an hour max. So I think it would like blow their minds if they could see, the ones that built that back in those days in like 1840 could see like, look how it is now. Those people would be like, their minds would be absolutely blown. But I think it's interesting, like how, and exciting, like how much, like how, as humans and as a human race, like how far have we come? Like, see, like it's incredible. That was it for today, and I'll see you soon. Bye.